What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Screenheads TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my review of Better Call Saul, Season 3, Episode 3, titled Sunk Costs. Okay, this was a solid episode. I mean, it wasn't great. It moved the plot along somewhat. We got some more tiny bit of character development. Honestly, this just feels like an episode that was stuck in there to spread out the season. I was totally wrong on my predictions, and that's not why I'm saying I didn't really like it. But I expected it to move along a little bit more. I don't know why I expected that of Better Call Saul. It is a slower show. I just thought that this season was gonna pick up the pace a tad. Okay, so first off, let me talk about Kim. I'm glad that she had an arc. I didn't think she was gonna have an arc this episode. I like how they're finding ways to have Kim have her own storyline, because so many shows rely on the female characters to just be set dressing or to just move along the male characters, and I always appreciate when they have well-rounded, well-developed female characters that have their own story arcs. So like usually with TV, it's either you get a show that's like all about women and their own story arcs and all that, or you get a show that only has the women, like I said, as set dressing or in order as a device to move the male characters forward. Okay, so I love that montage of Kim like waking up, doing her everyday thing. You can tell that that's what she does every day, or at least 3 days a week. You know what I mean? Like she does that all the time. Wakes up on the couch. There was looked like there was work in front of her. She was probably working on what is it, Mesa Verde all night. Probably having some drinks because she did look a little hungover in my opinion, but it could have just been the early morning looks. She goes to the fitness place, it does the whole thing. I love that because it just felt like routine. Even though it's the first time we've seen it, it felt like routine. And that's just all in the writing, the acting, and like the set design and the way they do the costumes and hair and all that. All of it. Amazing. Such good storytelling. And then I liked how she was. Look, I'll tell you, from the beginning, I thought Jimmy was like chasing Kim, and Kim was kind of like the lady, the girl that likes the guy chasing them and likes the attention and all that. That's what I thought of Kim in the first season. And then in season 2, I felt a little differently. I'm like, all right, maybe she does kind of like Jimmy. But now I'm feeling like, and it was probably this all the way, and I'm just now seeing it. I think she like loves Jimmy as much as he loves her. I think she's just as much into Jimmy as he is into her. Now, I don't think she likes when he does the illegal things and all that, because it goes against her morals, and the reasons, I guess, why she became a lawyer. But I don't know. She just feels like such a well fleshed out character to me. I didn't see it before, but the way she's there for Jimmy in this episode, really, I mean, that's the most character stuff we got out of this episode was, in my opinion, the connection between Jimmy and Kim. But on Kim's side, we always saw that Jimmy was into Kim. But the way she was there for him, that's like some real deal stuff right there. I mean, look at it. That shows that she's a good partner, a good business partner. It shows that she's a good friend, and it shows that she really cares about Jimmy in probably the way that Jimmy cares about her. She appeared to me as someone who is in love with Jimmy and conflicted by his actions. I still think she's second guessing being partners with him. I do, but I think that love is there more than I thought so before, and this episode showed me that. So I like the way she was there, how she stepped up and kind of argued, like, no, let me be your lawyer, and Jimmy's like, no, 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 no. I think in Jimmy's mind, he wants to go at it himself in that moment, and I guess throughout, just so he can stick it to Chuck and say, I'm a good lawyer, look at this. Even though he probably wasn't offered the deal yet at that point, I still think he's thinking that, right? Even though at that point he thinks Chuck wants to get him locked up, right? I'll get to that later. All right, so there we are. There we have Kim's storyline for this episode. Like I said, I love the actress. I love what they're doing with the character and the writing and everything. And they really understand not only how to write a woman character, but how to make her central to the show, and not just feel like she's just there. All right. That was a problem with like the early seasons of Breaking Bad with Skylar, I felt. But the more Breaking Bad went on after season 1, she was more integrated into the plot and everything, and I love it. And it shows here that it's the same people, the same talent writing it, All right, so real quick, we got Chuck, where it's apparent that he's definitely playing that dude that keeps meeting the young nerdy kid that keeps meeting up with Kim. I forget his name; it always escapes me. But it's out there and apparent that he's playing that kid to get to have this all get underway. Without him, this wouldn't have went down the same way that it did. And then we learn that he wasn't trying to get Jimmy locked up. He's trying to get him disbarred so that he can't perform law in that state anymore. New Mexico, or are they in Arizona? I think he said Arizona bar. I don't know, something like that. So yeah, that's really interesting, and it just adds to Chuck's evilness and adds to his villainous, if you will. Chuck is one of the great TV villains, and let me tell you why. Because we never saw him coming. Season 1, you would have never guessed he was a villain. Even when they let it out that it was Chuck that was keeping Jimmy from being an HHM, you still didn't think Chuck was a villain. You just thought, well, he knows his brother, and he doesn't want to be associated with that, And then in season 2, you really start to see that he's not a good guy and he's a bad guy. Now, I think this season, we're really going to see villain Chuck. Because I think Jimmy's going to get out of this whole mess and it's going to piss Chuck off to no end. And I think we're going to learn that this is all because of something from their childhoods when everyone liked Jimmy better than Chuck. That's what I think it all comes down to. The parents, the girlfriends, the wives, everyone in the neighborhood, the teachers, everybody probably liked Jimmy better than Chuck. And I think Chuck holds a resentment, and that's why he always keeps Jimmy like under his shoe. And that's why he treats Jimmy basically like a little bitch. So yep, that's it for Chuck for that episode, but I can't wait to see where they're gonna go with that character. Then we have Mike. I'm gonna do Jimmy last. I usually do Mike last. I'm gonna do Jimmy last. Mike was another slower, kind of uneventful. I mean, it was important for what we know, where we know Mike ends up in Breaking Bad. It was important to see this meeting between him and Gus. And this is one of my complaints of the episode is before this, Gus felt like he was being integrated naturally before this episode. But the way he appears in this episode, there's someone he doesn't really know or anything like that, and just the way he goes about it, I felt it didn't feel like Gus. It felt a little forced, and I didn't care for the way it was handled. And I rarely have any complaints about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. But that's a small complaint, but still a complaint. Now, I liked Mike's story, how he's reluctant to not go against, he's reluctant where he wants to get rid of Hector, but here's this guy coming and telling you that he doesn't want Hector to go yet, whatever, and he seems like a good guy, and good enough guy, and he obviously has a business and a drug organization where maybe your skills would be useful. I think that's what Mike is thinking, like, oh, maybe this guy can be useful to me until I can kill Hector. And we all know that eventually Hector does get killed. Mike isn't a big part of that, but I don't think he cares if he's a part of it as long as it happens, right? But who knows how he's feeling at the point of Breaking Bad, it's years later, so he may not still be holding that same grudge, and at that point, he's just with Gus, because being with Gus helps him take care of his family. But we know he's pretty high ranking in Gus's organization eventually. So this is the start of that, and like I said, even though I didn't like the way it was handled, it was necessary for where Mike and Gus end up. Now, as far as the drugs in the shoe and all of that, oh, and that doctor that gives Mike the drugs was in Breaking Bad. I believe he's the doctor that patches Mike up. And when Jesse goes there and he sees all the blood or whatever, like they have blood for everybody. I think he even sees blood with his name on it or something. Something like that. I don't know, but it's the same doctor. Okay. The drugs in the shoe. I love the plan. I love the scene, how it was handled, him throwing it up there. I really feel like they got Jonathan Banks just to chuck that shit up there a bunch of times. And when they got it stick, finally he made it stick, All right, I like the idea. I like the plan. I didn't know where it was going until I seen him with the sniper rifle. But once he was with the sniper rifle, I said, okay, he's going to spray. Because we already saw a truck go through there going to the border before. So we knew where that path leaded. So he's obviously going to get the drugs on one of the guys or on the truck. That's what I'm thinking. And that's exactly what happened. Little bit far-fetched, I guess, that there was even residue left because they were driving away and it was powder. So you would think that the wind from them driving would blow it all away. But, suspension of disbelief. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I had that problem with Breaking Bad every now and again, but because Walt was a scientist and used science, and I'm a science guy, I think science is everything, and everything is science. And, I could believe it with Walt because of that. This, I don't know, but whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it does detract a tiny bit from the episode for me. All right, then on to Jimmy. Odenkirk's performance is so great because he says so much without saying, with saying very little. And he does a good job of the push and pull, of making you understand what he's thinking and the different ways that the human brain works. If you really pay attention to the nuances in his performance, it's really, really amazing. So this whole episode, you kind of push and pull a little bit. Like you feel bad for him, and then the next minute you're like, ooh, he's thinking something. He's plotting. He's up, like, for instance, in the beginning, when he's sitting on the curb smoking the cigarette. When you first look at him, you feel bad. But then when Chuck comes out and you look at him and how he's sitting there quiet, he's planning. What is he planning? I don't know yet. And then you see him again in the cell, and you're like, oh man, it sucks to see Jimmy like this, and taking off his shoes, going through the mugshot, all that. But then you see him sitting down on the bench, and he's thinking. And what is he thinking about? He's plotting. You see it in his face. It goes from feeling a look of sorrow to a look of like determination and anger. Rewatch it. It's amazing. And then we have finally at the end when he's telling Kim, right? Well, it even happens in the courtroom, right? And I guess part of his plot, part of his plan was to defend himself and to really stick it to Chuck, right? So we don't know exactly when he found out about the deal, but I'm going to assume it was before he decided to defend himself, but probably not, because we don't see the Chuck with the lawyer scene till after that. Definitely not until after. He tries to bribe that one lawyer with the cheeseburger. That was good stuff. All right, so now we got Jimmy at the end when that great scene with him and Kim. He's telling Kim about what happened, and the way he's telling her is in a fragmented way. He's telling her, we don't know this information either, so we're learning it the same way Kim learns it. And, he's telling her, about the deal, and then she's like, oh, great, you got to take it. He's like telling her the optimistic stuff, and then he tells her a little more, and then finally he gives her the whole nut. Chuck just wanted to disbar me. He doesn't want me locked up. And the way he says it, again, you get that look of sorrow and feeling bad for him. But then, through the whole thing. But then once he says that, you get this look of, there's no way he's taking the deal. He's going to go right for the Chuck. Hopefully him and Kim both defend him. I would like to see that because that's going to be a great dynamic. But Maybe not. Maybe it'll be just Jimmy, which will be probably equally gratifying, maybe even a little bit more to see Jimmy do it all on his own. And he's going to get off. I know it. And hopefully my predictions come true where he's going to have to spend some time in jail while the trial is going on. So I'm hoping that's how he starts his criminal practice. He meets all these criminals and gets his criminal law going. I totally see it going that way. I hope I'm right because I like the way that sounds. But yep, that's it. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. Wasn't great. I'm going to give it a 3.7. I'm not going to give it a 4 because not a lot happened. There was some character growth. There was a few developments, but nothing stupendous or great. The performances are always on point and amazing. I really want to give it a 4, but those two mistakes that keep on eating at me in the back of my head is why I took off those 2 points. So we got a 3.8 out of 5. Still a solid episode. Better Call Saul takes time to really get those really, really great episodes. So I'm really looking forward to the end of the season. Sound off down below. Now, let me know what you think. Sorry the video was so long. I'm really trying to get them shorter. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I got a predictions video coming up on episode 4, so look out for that one. And that's it for this video. You guys have a great day. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.